Hey everyone, this is Shobhit from Intentional Product Manager, and today we'll be talking about the old ways of searching for product management jobs and the new ways of finding that ideal role that gives you what you want. Stay tuned for more. If you're like most product managers, you have a given way of job search that you've been following for a long time that, frankly speaking, has not been working. So let's figure out how this goes on. You're at your job, something goes on that causes you to go look for a new job. It might be that, hey, you got laid off, you got fired, you're just starting to get bored, you're like, cool, this is not getting me where I want to get to, and you're like, maybe I should go find a new job, right? Like just like this cat just decided to walk because something was bothering her with where she was. So what do most product managers do? They're like, cool, let me start looking for jobs on LinkedIn. So for that, I'm going to follow a few steps. Number one, I'll go and update my resume, add my latest accomplishments to what I've had. Second, I'm going to start applying on LinkedIn, or just find like other roles that might be maybe like a little bit above where I am right now, and then start applying online. You apply online, start to get a few calls. So then you're like, cool, what are the questions this company asks? Let me go prep for that. You prep, you have the first interview, second interview, and in a few months or maybe longer, depending on market and your preparation, you're on to the next role. And you might get a 10-20% bump in compensation, so you're happy about that. Maybe even they give you a higher title. Maybe it's a better company, and you're good. You're happy with that. Now that's how most product managers find the jobs. But that way it's not working. Why is it not working? Because if you realize you did everything from a perspective of where you were, and you're maybe getting marginally better. You're telling the story of your resume, just like starting with the existing resume and just getting slightly better. You're looking for jobs that have more to do with what you've done before than where you want to be. It's just all marginal, incremental improvements. And so I've seen people get stuck and literally do the same job more or less over and over again at different companies without ever a strong leap into their career. I want to introduce to you a new way of finding these jobs that wise, smart product managers are using, especially while working with us, to help them find the ideal next role that is going to propel them to a new future and get them to that ultimate position that they're going after. Let's start with it. So there's going to be 5 phases that I'll describe. Product managers who land those amazing jobs, they begin with phase 1, which is clarity and strategy. What does that mean? So this is where they get clear on what their long-term goals really are. And in order to get towards their long-term goals, they figure out what are the steps they need to take. Like, what is really that strategy that will get them to the long-term steps? And based on that, what is the ideal next role? The ideal next role has a whole bunch of characteristics, right? Whether it's from how much it pays or what sort of company it is on, what responsibilities you have, those are potential things in that role. So what ideal product managers or smart product managers, what they do is they figure out what are the characteristics that this next role need to have so that it fits the life I want, and then also it propels me towards that long-term career. That's the first part, being clear about what you want and what that next role should be. Now, that in itself is good, but it's not sufficient because there's the other aspect, which is what are the experiences that you are going to bring to the table that are going to qualify you and make you an extremely good candidate for that role. So this requires revisiting and reviewing your experiences from potentially a new lens, and marrying these two gives you your positioning, which is, okay, based on my experiences, this is what I need to target, and here is how I need to position myself. Now, this is subtle, but it's very important. Because most product managers are going to be cool. Like, I've done all these things. So maybe, like, I'm a principal PM level in healthcare. That's roughly where I am. And that might be okay, but that might not be the best way to look at your experiences. So, just example, we are on the healthcare. Let's talk about healthcare. One of our clients, they have been healthcare all this time, but they wanted to get out. They wanted to move to something different, ideally with the more consumer bent. Ideally, they'll have a lot more customer data to look at. Like, that's where they want to take their career. And that's wonderful. But if that's where they want to take their career, positioning and branding themselves as a healthcare product manager, even if they have worked in healthcare, but positioning themselves as a healthcare product manager is not going to get them anywhere, right? That will just get them another healthcare job. So we had to take and apply different lenses to the experiences, come up with different approaches. And where we ended up was, realizing that this person had always worked in products that were heavy in data, analytics, recommendations, like those sort of things. So they could do that in any industry. It didn't have to only be healthcare. And so our positioning changed completely. It became around data and analytics heavy products. And that's the role. So they ended up in fintech, but it was all based on this unique lens and this positioning that we had come up with. So look, this is all work on pure strategy, and we haven't even begun to interviews and all those things. Like, that's going to come later. But your strategy is the first phase that needs to be clear. When you start with the new way, you begin with strategy, and then you go to your narrative or your story. It's great to have that positioning, but you need to support that positioning with real proof, real stories of where you have demonstrated the skills, the knowledge you claim to have. This is where we dig in and try to understand what are the stories we need to extract from your experiences to be able to make a case for that. Now look, most people, what they would do is they would just tell the story of their career. First I did this, then I did that, then I did that. That is awful, right? Like, if I were to tell the story of my career, I would be like, cool, I was a engineer, then sales engineer, then I became a management consultant, or somewhere I did my MBA, then product manager, then entrepreneur, and in between I launched a startup. What the hell is that? There's no positioning, there's no story behind it, right? But I could take a very different approach. I could say, look, for me, like, my real passion is taking those ideas, early ideas, 0 to 1. That's where I thrive. That I love to build companies, build products, and even when I'm working in things like consulting, build new practices within them. And so that's what I've done throughout my career, because I find my strengths of bringing order to chaos, of thinking through problems and solving them, of customer empathy really helps me have an advantage in these settings. So here's 3 examples where I've done it. And that's really what I am. I'm a 0 to 1 person. I could brand myself as that. There's also many other brandings I could do. But here's the story. I'm positioning myself a certain way. I'm relating the experiences, not all experiences that I've ever had, but chosen selected experiences towards what I want the other person to take away. You need that narrative. We call it the narrative, you can call it stories, but you need that narrative that supports your positioning. Because look, so much of job search is not about answering the questions that the interviewer has asked. It is about you conveying that you are a best fit for that role and why that role fits well into your career narrative, where you've come from, where do you want to be now, and where do you want to be long term. That's the perfect fit. So this is the second part, narrative. It's writing out and selecting stories and giving them angles that help position you as the best product manager for the kind of role that you're going after. So that's number 2. And by the way, there's a big aspect of it about inspiration. In the sense, most people think of interviews as check the box exercises, where, the interview has these criteria, so if I meet them, I'll get the job, otherwise I won't. In the real world, we all make emotion-driven decisions, which means you have to inspire your interviewers as much you need to just logically prove that you're a good fit. right? So that will be step number 2. Now, you have the narrative. The next step is to get your resume, your LinkedIn, which should follow your narrative, out there, and make sure you're networking in a way such that you get those actual interviews. And we use our pre-built network, we use various approaches to help people really not apply online. See, old way, apply online to 100 positions, get like 5 callbacks, and then start interviewing. That sucks, because that is so much to chance. At the time in which I'm recording this video, like, it's still a very tight market. And because it's a very tight market, what's really happening is that hundreds of applications are going into a position, and then sort of like people are selecting maybe like 5 of those and interviewing those people. And that's not always a fair selection. Like most resumes and applications would never even be looked at. The only way in is to avoid that process and go through something else. Referrals, networking, like some other way of getting your name to the front of the queue. And that's what we teach. Like, that is the networking aspect of intentional job search. Is we're not going to be the chumps who are always applying online. We're going to bypass that process. Make sure your resume gets seen. Does not mean that you always get the interview, but increases your chances dramatically. And that's a new way of networking rather than applying online. Number 4 of the new way is having interview preparation at the level at which you want. Let's say you're interviewing at Google, right? An L4 interview is different from an L5, L6, L7 in the complexity and the depth of answers you need to give to the same question. What are most product managers doing? They're doing interview prep. They're like, cool, these are the questions they ask. Maybe I'll write down answers. I'm good to go. Not our students. If they're applying for, example, a L6 role, which is very different from L4, because remember, even let's just talk about compensation. L4 product managers, average comp, $250K. USD, talking about California, slight difference across geographies. L6 level, $500K. They're paying you double. Okay? Those numbers change based on stock price and everything, but they're literally paying you double of what an L4 product manager will make. Which means there is a different expectations. And so rather than going and applying first, what most of the students working with us do using this new approach is that they prepare and refine their answers and get feedback to know that they are ready for that level before they go apply and they start to do all those things. So there is a fundamental difference in the kinds of questions you're asked and the kind of depth and strategic insight you're expected to showcase at these different levels. And intentional product managers, people following the new way, know what it is to be prepared at each level. They don't leave that up to chance. Number 5, part of the new way, is negotiating, but negotiating throughout the process. So rather than assuming negotiation is at the end, we know negotiation begins with the first reach out, the first call. Where the recruiter might even ask you about your experiences, how you're positioning yourself really matters, what levels the recruiter puts you up towards really matters. Like, there's a whole art and science to this. And then where you can ask for more money, better packages, that happens towards the end. But there's a whole art to it. And a new way is knowing that you have a target salary in mind. And most of the time, we want you to be highly aggressive about it. Like, I would rather you fall short of a very aggressive goal by 20% than exceed like a mediocre goal by 10%. Because guess where you're gonna end up ahead? It's that when you set an aggressive goal and then maybe you fall short just a little bit, maybe you hit it, and you might still get an awesome package. And then there's like different aspects that go into negotiation. I won't go into details here, but you lining up all of them, like whether it's support or interviews or whatnot, lining up all of them to make sure you have the best shot of getting the highest possible compensation for that level. And trust me, even in markets like today, like literally when I'm recording, day before we had a FANG offer, the highest number I've ever seen at that level. Even in the best of times, the number wasn't that high. So companies are willing to pay, and intentional product managers recognize that using the new way, negotiation is a very important process and it happens throughout the call. Now, there's one thing that I miss saying in the new way, because it's not a distinct phase. And that ultimately is how you perceive yourself. People call it your mindset, your performance psychology. I like to refer to it as your identity. If you're trying to get an up level during the job search, which a lot of our clients are trying to do, they have to have that strong belief that at the end of the day, they deserve the up level. And they need to build up the belief as they do the work, as they do various forms of exercises with us. I've never yet seen someone exceed what they believe they deserved. So if fundamentally you don't believe you deserve that, you're not going to get it. Okay, maybe by luck one time you get it, but typically people regress to the mean. But there are ways that you can change your beliefs, and that whole mindset work, psychology work is a big aspect. And really, in the new way, you keeping an eye out on your psychology is just like something that is not a phase, it always happens. So this was the new way of landing your ideal next role. And look, you have really two choices here. You now know the new way. You can go try to figure it out by yourself, and it might, make a small difference. Or you could really take our help in getting your next role, because at the end of the day, the kind of returns you get far outweigh any extra work, investment, anything you need to do to work with us. So invite you to book a call with us. One of my awesome trained coaches will speak with you. Use the link that's here. We look forward to speaking with you very soon and showing you how you can leverage the new way for your intentional job search. Speak with you soon.